The question is, why does the me feel so sticky in relationships? In other situations, it's somewhat easy to be free of the me. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships, it seems very sticky and comes back very forcefully each time. It's a good question because this is where truly the living of the teaching matters. When we are by ourselves, when we are even in satsang, when we are walking in nature, when we remain in solitude, there may be a sense of peace that comes easily because there is not the trigger of another person and the image associated with it. So we may feel that the me is absent. But then, when there is a relationship of any kind, in that relationship, the me comes back. That's why relationships are the mirror in which we can clearly see where we are. So it's first good to acknowledge that whatever our meditation or whatever our inquiry is, if it's not functioning in relationships, then to be aware of it is a very good thing. Because to live is to relate. And without relationships, no matter where we go, we cannot live. We can escape even one set of relationships, as many have tried, and then go to a forest or go to anywhere. And even there, we need relationships to live, to eat, to have a dwelling, and so on. So we cannot avoid relationships because life is relationship. And yet relationship is the source of trouble. So this is the conundrum, and this is the also the best place to deepen and to perfect this recognition and live in meditation. So when we are in relationship, what happens is there is not just one me, but there are multiple me's coming up at the same time. So it's very dynamic because when we are dealing with an object or dealing with a book or knowledge or nature itself, there may be some vasanas, as it's called, some tendencies rising, but it can be seen very clearly, relatively speaking. There are many who are even there attached to many things, such as attached to furniture, attached to the house, attached to various material possessions. Even that is not as easy as sometimes we think it is. If we look closely, we may find that there are so many attachments we have to even objects, to clothes, to so many things. But at least there, we can see it clearly because the entire movement of attachment is coming from within and not triggered by the object itself, as in the object doesn't respond with the same movement, being inert. But when we are dealing with people, humans, it is happening in both ways. Not only are we having the me rising with its own image, the person we relate to has their own image of the me. And not only that, we have an image of them and they have an image of us. So there is multiple images at play. So we are not even relating to the person as they are, but we are only relating to the image from the standpoint of the image here. So we have an image which is built through time, which is all the various identities and the various attachments we have. And then we form an image of others. And when the person is close to us, in a close relationship, then the image is even stronger, because every time we fortify this image of the other person and we are constantly reinforcing this image, everything is seen through the filter of the image, and then we are thereby strengthening the image and constantly interacting only with the image. So which is the me, which is the false identification, both here and there. So we don't see the other person as they are in this moment, but only through the filter of the image we have, which is the past. And we are also the image which is the past. So it is the past interacting with the past. And the present is only reduced to a means to fortify the past, to strengthen the past. So this is the condition of most relationships. To be aware of all this is itself a very great gateway into being free of it, because we are not aware of this, and we may sit in meditation, we may study books on self-knowledge or listen to lectures, all of which is very good. But when we interact with people in day-to-day activities, whether in family or at work or in other places, we slip into this unconscious identification, which is draining, which is causing all conflicts. And then we come back as a refuge to our own little corner where we can sit in meditation or read a book or walk by ourselves. And that's why there is even this expression called me time. People say, I want me time. The me time is actually just escape. So it's quite appropriate, because it's just the me wanting to escape in order to just reinforce its own separation. And then we again go back into relationships and again the same. So every day this cycle continues. So when we are clear about all this, the activity of thought, which is constantly going back and forth between being caught in images and then escaping it through this so-called me time, both of which are only strengthening the false separation. Because if we are truly recognizing the essence of self-inquiry, then it has to function just as well in relationships as it is in solitude. So that requires tremendous alertness. And not only alertness, but also clarity of insight. When we look at anyone, when we look at them through the eyes of the past, then it becomes very difficult to have a relationship, as already said. But when we see that every person is an expression, this moment, of this divine energy that is functioning perfectly, then we can see the person totally differently. The more we know a person, the more we know their nature, and that cannot be forgotten naturally. There may be different tendencies people have, what is called as swabhava. Some people are more extroverted, some are introverted, some are more action oriented, some are more lazy, some are, let's say, more time oriented, some are late for things. There are so many different qualities people have. All of these are part of the nature. Each, just as every tree has its own nature, every shrub, every flower, everything has got its own unique nature. Every human being also has their own unique nature. Everyone is not the same. One of the fallacies sometimes we also entertain as part of non-duality is to think everyone is the same, which is the other extreme, which is only a theoretical idea. There is no sameness in the level of expression. The source is the same, but the expressions are unique and infinite. So everyone's expression is unique. But what we do, the conditioning we have is we make these expressions into a personal sense of center there. We think there is someone there as a center, as an individual self, who is wielding this nature. And same way, we inherently assume that there is an individual self here that is wielding the nature here. So the problem is not the unique nature, which is always different, but the problem is the assumption that there is a center there which is wielding that nature. So we give credit or we blame the individual self for what we like and what we don't like, without accepting things as they are. See, if we look at a tree, one tree grows in a certain way, another tree grows in a different way. We don't blame the tree. Why this tree is not growing, why this tree is that way. Because there we see clearly that it's just nature working. It's not that there is something in the tree as a center which is deciding how to grow, how to express itself. Each tree is a beautiful natural expression, each unique, of the same divine nature. The same is true with humans too, but there we make this inherent fallacy that there is a center there as an individual self, which is the reason for the nature. In the case of a tree, we don't ascribe any reason for the nature. We just accept the nature of the tree as it is. But when it comes to people, we don't accept them as they are because we think they are the way they are because of their ego. because of their individual self. So the reason there is not the same acceptance is because we ascribe the wrong source to their nature. We think the source of their nature is their individual self. So then, naturally, we have judgment of their individual self based on this nature which is collected over time. So we build an image of the person based on the nature of what is. And similarly, of course, we have an image of ourselves. We think we are the wielder of the nature here. So we feel proud about certain qualities that are here, and we feel guilty about certain qualities that are here, and so on. So this dynamic of relating due to ascribing the wrong source as individuals is what is at the root of all relationships and all troubles. So self-inquiry is what can function in this very dynamic. It is not just about closing our eyes and asking mechanically, who am I? As we pointed out the other day, we know the question, we know the answer, then it becomes another mechanical thing. That's not the purpose of the question, who am I? The purpose of the question, who am I, is to engage with it as a living question through recognizing all these activities of thought, how it is instantly slipping into this image of the I, and then the image of the other, and then the I and the other become very important. And due to this, there is the conflict that comes about. And all of this is because of not recognizing the true source. So if we ask the question in that very dynamic, being very alert. See, first is the clarity of insight, as we said, more than even alertness. Because when there is the clarity of insight, that the source of the unique expressions of nature is not the individual selves, as we wrongly presume, but only the one source which is expressing itself in all these ways, including giving the delusion that there is an individual center there. Even that is an expression of the same source, which has given this false illusion that there is a me, there is a he, there is a she, as a persistent center. See, all these pronouns in all languages, as we saw yesterday in this Ulladu Narpadu verse, language has first person, second person, third person, and they are necessary for communication. When we speak, we say I, you, and then he or she, which is not something we need to stop doing or anything, but to recognize that it is the pronoun to express the truth of this moment. When we say I am eating, it is referring to the act of eating which is happening in this body. And then when we say I am watching, let's say something on the television, then it is the I is referring to the act of watching. So at each moment, the pronoun I is just a self-referential language, linguistic expression to the dynamic movement of nature. And the same is true with he, she, and you. When we say refer to someone as you, this moment, we are referring to what is being seen now. In that sense, all these pronouns are not only perfect but essential to communicate. But when we imagine that there is a persistent I here, and there is similarly a persistent you there, a he or she there, which are all separate, that is the source of all the problems. And that is strengthened through this false narrative as the source of each one's unique nature. So when there is the clarity of insight that what is here is only the expression that is unique, and the same is there everywhere, each person being a unique expression, and there is no center there as others. So this is why in a very pithy way, and it's very famous quote too, when someone asked, how do we treat others, to Ramana Maharshi, he said, there are no others. To understand this, we have to recognize this very fact. It is not that there are no others in terms of other bodies. There are so many physical bodies, there are so many 8 billion humans are there. But there are no others in the sense of there are no individual selves for each of those 8 billion bodies. Just as there is no individual self for each tree in nature. Everything is an expression of the one true self, the one true divine being, which is expressing itself in all these infinite ways. So to recognize this is to see someone as they are, not as we have projected them to be, as we want them to be, as we think they should be, and all of this. All these superimpositions come because of this false identity rooted in ignorance that there are many individual selves. And unfortunately, the society reinforces it, culture reinforces it, most religions also reinforce it. They always talk about souls, and we have to save the souls, and all this language that's used in religions give this illusion that there are individual souls, and each individual soul has to get its own salvation, and so on. But the direct pointer of non-duality is the recognition that there is no such thing as an individual soul. There is only the one divine self, true being, which is expressing itself in infinite ways. So when we see this clearly, when this insight is clear, then that itself creates a tremendous shift within, wherein we look at everyone, acknowledge their unique nature, but do not complain about it, do not criticize it, do not judge it, but just accept it as it is, because that is the expression there. Just as we said, we don't complain about nature itself. Similarly, every human being an expression of nature, then there is nothing to complain about humans either. We can be intelligent in our response, based on understanding the nature and acting accordingly. It doesn't mean that we accept without any response. So even in nature, we see that everything is acting intelligently. If we put a tree, if we put a small shrub, it naturally bends towards the sun. If there are multiple trees in the forest, they figure out how to share the ecosystem where there is the natural symbiosis of energy. So, intelligent response is also part of nature. Acceptance is not a inert state of just simply being passive, but it is accepting and responding. So we can see the nature of each person as they are clearly first, without any desire to change or to wish otherwise. See, we don't see things as they are because we always see from the filter of what they should be. This division between what is and what should be always causes conflict. So if we don't see them from what should be, he should be like this, she should be like this is what causes all the conflict. If we just say he is like this or she is like this, that is the way they are, that is the expression of the nature there, then we deal with it with intelligence. We accept it and we respond to it as depending on the relationship, depending on the situation, the intelligent response might come of how to deal with it without this internal narrative that complains, judges, criticizes, all of it. All that is out, and there is only the clear perception and response. If we live in this way, with clear perception and response to each relationship, then there is love. Then there is true love, true acceptance. Then there is actually true relationship. We relate only when we don't identify them as a separate entity and thereby create distance. When we don't have this distance of the me and the other, but there is just the recognition each moment of what is rising and the intelligence that is there to respond to it, which also has the knowledge of the past as needed. And through all of this, we respond each moment and just drop it. We don't then psychologically register anything for here or for there. We just do what is necessary in this moment and then just drop it when it's over. The functional aspects are registered naturally, which also includes the what is called the nature, the swabhava. Because swabhava is also not static. It is constantly changing. People change with time. The nature changes with time. So we don't form an image of this nature too, but it's constantly seen clearly as it is, and that is naturally stored in memory, and it is available, and it is constantly getting modified with each interaction. All this happens very naturally, spontaneously. We don't have to think about it. We only have to stop thinking that there is somebody as an individual self who's wielding all these changes, who's the source of all this nature. And similarly, we have to stop thinking that here there is an individual self that is the source of all the activities and the nature here. So when that false I goes, then everything else falls in its place on its own. We don't have to do anything separately, everything happens on its own. There is the natural recognition of the swabhava, of the nature, the response that comes out of it, and the memory that's needed to respond and to store. All this happens on its own automatically when the false me is dropped and the false other is dropped. This is the whole essence of self inquiry in relationships. As we relate, when we relate in this way, then there is the natural intelligence which also figures out not only how to relate, when to relate, whom to relate with. All this comes about naturally, and the right action comes about because there is no fear and craving and all the other factors that are corrupting our relationship, but there is just the clear perception of what is and relating based on that. Yeah, see, to say should or shouldn't is always coming from the perspective of the me. So the same sense of self, individual self says, I shouldn't be attached. Instead of that, we ask, what is the conflict that is being created due to attachment? See, if attachment doesn't cause any conflict, then what's the problem? No problem, right? But that's not the truth, because attachment causes conflict. Attachment always causes expectations, causes division, causes arguments, and so on. So the question is not, or rather, the motive is not that I shouldn't be attached because I tell myself I shouldn't be attached, but rather recognize what is causing attachment. See, in everything we do, we always go for the opposite because the me wants to go to the opposite. It's like we say, even at the societal level, at all these levels, we say non-violence, right? Instead of understanding why there is violence, we tell ourselves, I should be non-violent. So then that becomes another ideal to practice. And we don't understand the root of violence, but we impose such a thing called non-violence. Same with this, we don't understand the root of attachment, but we impose such a thing called detachment. But the right approach is, which is the essence of self-inquiry, is who is attached? Why is there attachment? First, is attachment a problem? All these are clear things to recognize. If we recognize the problem of attachment, why it creates images, it creates conflict, it has all this. So we see clearly that attachment creates problems of various kinds. Then the question is, why is there attachment? If it is creating problem, then the rational thing is to be not attached, but there is attachment. That is the fact. So why is there attachment? If we go into that question, then we recognize that the attachment is there because of the me, which is here, which is also projecting a sense of me everywhere else. And that's what's causing attachment. And we see whether that is true. Is there a me? Am I what I take myself to be? So if you say who is attached, that is the right question, not ask how to be not attached. Because normally people talk about how to be not attached. But the question is who is attached? When we stay with that question, It's a different question altogether. Then we turn inwardly. We are not looking for a method to not be attached or some other external aid or something, but just look into who is attached, which is the same question as who am I. Then we recognize the truth that the source of attachment is this me, which is an illusion put together by thought or conditioning or whatever we call it. And the same is operating in all humans, which is the grand play of the divine energy itself, creating this illusion and playing with itself. When we recognize it, then we step out of the play. Then we can relate in the same play, but at a different level, where we are not caught in the play, but we can still relate without being caught in the illusion of attachment. Relating is a natural expression of life. Right? We are relating constantly. We are relating now, talking. We are relating when we eat food. Whatever we do, there is relating either with objects or with people. It's always happening each moment. When it comes to people, we have this complexity, as we said. So when we recognize that there is only the relating and there is no separate entity there to which we are relating. We are relating to the nature that's expressing itself as is in this moment. Not to an individual self who is supposedly having that nature. That's the only difference. Everything else continues. We still relate, we still talk, we can still joke, whatever you do, but not with this constant inner voice that is separating itself from the relating to create a narrative of the me and the other. Because normally we are constantly creating this narrative of the me and the other each time we relate. When we don't do that, we're recognizing that there is only this uniqueness of expression, but not multiplicity of selves. Then we are free of this false separation. We confuse uniqueness with multiplicity. Uniqueness does not mean that there are separate selves for each. See, we ourselves constantly are, the expression is changing. When we use language, we say this, that as if I am going through change, but change is happening. That's the reality. See, it's the body is changing, for instance, over time, but we think I have a body that's changing. There is no I having the body. There is just the body that's changing. When we speak in language, we say, my body is changing, as if there is an I separate from the body who is controlling this body and going through change. So even language sometimes cheats us, and we get caught in that pattern of separating from the body as I, separating from the mind as I, and same with others. But the truth is, the body is changing, the thoughts are changing, the moods are changing, but there is no separation as I from any of this. To see the falsity of that is self-inquiry in action, in relationship. So you don't have to The only watching, if you have to use the word watching, is the watching of this false me. If the me rises with this narrative of I should be like this, I shouldn't be like this, or he should be like this, she should not be like this, just to watch that and not be caught in that voice, not believe that voice, as most often almost everyone does, but not be caught, but watch that voice and thereby be free of it and just accept the nature as it is and respond to it with intelligence without being caught in this narrative of the separate egoic center that we think is the reason for the nature as it is.
Thank you. So it's almost like every second that relationship is just there, right? Like it's not
Yes.
like there is a predetermined person reacting to a person. It's just that
Right.
it's flowing. It's
So
that like what
it's
you say, that one moment of nature.
a dynamic
But
flow,
it is,
exactly
yeah.
right. It's a dynamic. Then